Hey everyone, welcome to All Out in the Open. I'm Charlie Bird.
And I'm Ben Schilaty. On this episode of Open Up, Charlie and I got kind of real about just how we've been feeling lately and things that have been sort of tough.
Yeah, we know a lot of people have been experiencing a lot of noise or pushback, and it's kind of an interesting time to be an LGBTQ person in the church, in the country, and we just kind of like dug into that a little bit and ended up having a pretty cool conversation about what we can do and what allies can do in order to kind of help lift some of the burden.
Yeah, and I showed off my off-the-cuff knowledge of the Book of Acts.
Yeah, he did. You can always trust Ben to quote a scripture.
Hope you enjoy it.
Things have been pretty loud lately, huh?
They have been very loud.
Yeah, what have you noticed?
I've noticed a lot of people saying things about LGBTQ people that I think were believed a lot before, but now it's so much more out in the open.
Tell me more.
Like trans people are really under a lot of attack right now, and like trans people were just dismissed from the military, and like that is really jarring, and like Idaho is trying to pass a law to not allow gay marriage in their state,
and North Dakota.
And like there's this whole plan that's well laid out that people can read and look up about how they're hoping to overturn gay marriage nationwide, the Obergefell ruling later this year or next year. And it really feels like in a lot of ways our community is being attacked, and that has been loud and kind of scary.
Yeah. How have you been dealing with that?
I just have been trying to worry about things I can control and just like living my life. And I mean, I don't in a lot of ways know what to do as one person except to like live my best life and do things that bring me joy, and also be with be with people who are struggling and sad, and also, you know, help them have joy. So, but in a lot of ways it's been scary.
Yeah, things have been loud. That's the best way I can describe it. I think in the past couple of months, and I realize that a lot of this is because I'm a social media presence, and there's a level of scrutiny that comes with being a public figure, and the bigger the numbers, like the higher the engagement, the more the pushback, right? That you don't control where the algorithm sends your stuff. Anyway, in the past couple of months, though, there has been like this noticeable increase and people just being really harsh or cruel and towards me and my husband and my relationship. And it's not just like things that hurt. Like some people are just like, you're not very attractive. I'm like, okay. But it's been like
I mean, that's not mean. I kind of agree with that.
Oh, thanks. But there's like slurs, right? And people saying like just like supporting some of the stuff you were talking about. And it's interesting because like a lot of some of that stuff is happening and some of it's not, right? Some of it is like plans or like I don't always think it's the majority who holds those loud voices. But it has been really jarring to see just the hate and the ignorance that people spew. And the thing that maybe is the most heartbreaking is that almost every time the people who say the most cruel things have a scripture or a Bible verse or at Church of Jesus Christ in their bio. And that has been super disheartening. Yeah.
To feel like the people who should be good Christians or purporting to be good Christians are the ones who are being so rude to you.
Yeah. Yeah. It feels backwards.
Yeah. Charlie, I know you talked about this on social media. You shared a post. I didn't read it because it was very long. Tell us what you said and like why that was important to you.
Yeah. Well, just with this noise, it's been stressful, and you know, Ryan has been also, he's a very protective person, and he's just been nervous. And anyway, I just wanted to go to the temple. Like, I just wanted to break from the noise, and I wanted to go somewhere that's familiar to me and be in a place that has always felt so set apart. I just really, really wanted to go to the temple, and I can't And I knew that. I knew before I married my husband that would come with that exchange or consequence, however you want to say it. But sometimes it just hits more than other times. Most of the time it's, of course, like I would never not marry my husband. It's a decision I'd make 1,000 times over.
Mm-hmm.
But like this week when I went to sit on the temple grounds and it was loud and it was busy and there were cars passing by, like there was no insulated celestial room. It was just chaotic still. And I was just really sad that that place of peace and that set apart space is a place I can no longer access.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it just like, there wasn't any resolution there. It was just kind of like, it's loud right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really know how things are going to go.
Yeah. What did you need that day from the temple?
I needed to feel like I was part of my community. Yeah. Like I needed to feel like a member of the church.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like a half member of the church. I felt like I wasn't, I mean, and it was true. Like I wasn't allowed to access God in the place where other people are allowed to access God.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This is going to sound like a really basic question.
Mm-hmm.
But you knew going into this that, marrying Ryan would lead to like some restrictions.
Right.
And you also knew the teachings of the church. And I know this is a really basic question, but like, what's it like for you to live in a world where there are two things that are important to you that compete so much?
It's lonely. There's like so much happiness, but there's never like this fullness, And I almost feel guilty saying that a little bit because in some ways it's so cool. It's cool how it pushes me. It's cool how I develop empathy. It's cool how I recognize other people who maybe feel like they don't really have a secure spot.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it helps me serve, but at the same time, it does feel lonely. Just to like not be fully accepted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know your ward has been really kind to you.
Yeah.
You have good friends there. Talk to me about this loneliness you're feeling, even if like people are still so good to you, if they're still so kind.
People have been lovely in person, not online.
Uh-huh.
And actually, a ton of people online are lovely.
Yeah.
They're the ones who follow me. It's the ones who don't that we kind of worry about. But yeah, in person, like most people are lovely. And of course, like anyone, I've had bad experiences with past church leaders, but right now I just feel like we're in a good spot in a good community. But there's something to be said about like the structural loneliness, I think, that hits in a way that hurts.
Uh-huh.
I don't feel lonely with God. I don't feel lonely with Christ. Sometimes structure or policy can kind of be a wedge to that relationship, but I have to just be really like honest and intentional about removing that wedge, keeping those relationships strong. But yeah, like everyone wants to be a part of the club. Everyone's like to have access to, I don't know how to describe it,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a structural loneliness.
Yeah, it's interesting because, I'm in a different situation than you are, but I've also been feeling that loneliness. And the thing that is so weird is like I live on this little dead-end street, and there are two families on the block that are about my age that have little kids, and they're so fun, and they love me, and they like have me over for dinner regularly. And one of my neighbors, Diana, she and her husband like got me a card for my birthday, and I go over to their house, like watch shows sometimes, and Diana always tells me how fun it is to have me over because they just talk to them, like she and her husband just talk, and then it's like them and their kids all day. Like it is so nice to have another adult come over that we can talk to.
Yeah.
And on my birthday, they sent me a card, and she was like, "Thank you for coming over, like to hang out with us." She's like, "You have no idea how much it means to us," and that was so nice. And I was like, "This is like I do belong here." And then still, even with that, like people inviting me over for dinner and like being like so explicit, we're so glad to have you in our lives. I also feel that loneliness, and I wonder like where that's coming from, what to do about that. Because I do feel that when I go to church. And it's also interesting. When my mom died, like she died on a Sunday night, I told like 30 people, and not one of them was in my ward that my mom had died. At 8 o'clock the next morning, my bishop texted me. It was like, "Hey, I heard about your mom. Like, just wanted to make sure like you're doing okay." And I still have no idea how we found out because I did not tell him, or nor anyone who would have talked to him, and at least that quickly. But he repeatedly reached out and was like, "We care. How can your ward family support you in this time?" And I just thought, I didn't want that. I just didn't feel like, I don't know. I like when I talk about like my ward family, it doesn't feel like I belong there. When I talk about like people in the ward, I do feel that. I'm wondering where that comes from.
Do you think it's because you're in a family ward?
Probably.
And you're single?
Yeah. I'm not the only single older guy there. There are a handful of us. But yeah, I mean, I'm the only person in my situation in my ward.
Well, and I feel like this kind of brings up the question, can like allies or friends or relationships make up for a lack of organizational acceptance?
Mm-hmm. That's a really good question. And can they fully make up for a lack of organizational acceptance?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. And I've had to like wrestle with that lately. Like is going to church always going to feel a little painful like this? And maybe it will.
Yeah. Well, and every time these kind of like thoughts come up, I try to take it back and be like, is this just a normal human experience, or is this exclusive to me being gay? Right? Is this just normal loneliness or awkwardness? And sometimes I'm able to parcel that out, but I think a lot of it is just because I'm a member of this LGBTQ community.
Mm-hmm.
That, I mean, that's the reason I can't go to the temple.
Yeah.
You know, because if I wasn't gay and I fell in love with the person I was supposed to marry and I was heterosexual, then I wouldn't have had much of the noise, right?
Mm-hmm.
As much of the noise, and I could have gone to the temple.
Yeah. Do you feel noise when you go to church?
Yeah. A ton.
Uh-huh. Tell me about that. What's that like?
Well, I just feel like my worship is so politicized, and so like people are so interested in it and ask questions about it, and it has also created like pretty big issues for me in the past. Like going to church has like, there's literally been news stories and people following me there, and there's just been a lot of stuff. And so yeah, like going there it's always like, who's watching? Like it's not comfortable. Like it's not personal like it used to be.
Yeah. What do you feel when you're like visiting a different ward, when you're like out of town? I'm just kidding. You don't go to church when you travel. I'm kidding.
No, I do go to church when I travel. I mean, in some ways it's easier if nobody knows who I am or who my husband is. There's like less, but then again, it's not my ward. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It doesn't feel like home.
Yeah.
And it sounds like home also doesn't feel like home.
It's more complicated than that.
Say more.
It's like my ward does feel like home to me, but it's that little piece of just like, I'm actually not fully accepted here structurally. So again, it goes back to that question, like, even if you have a ton of love and support around you on the ground level, cannot make up, or how much does that make up for the agony of being born outside the system?
Yeah, and I think that's the noise I think a lot of people are feeling right now, where like your worship is politicized. Our lives
are politicized.
Like we are talking points, and we are viewed in a lot of ways as the enemy, and as people to be like concerned about and like to protect children from. And like you said, like in our church community, in our larger society, as nice as people are, there's still that weight of people don't trust me. People are afraid of me. People are wary of me.
It's dehumanizing, right? It feels like treated like an issue instead of a person.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think that's a great point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Maybe this is too big of a leap, but what can we do about this?
I don't know. Because like you said, there's so many areas where we are powerless, because like obviously the simple solution is like change the systems, like increase structural support for people. But there are like systems where that's impossible or where we don't have any power.
Mm-hmm.
And that can also be really distressing when you feel like your belonging is out of your control.
Mm-hmm.
And I can just imagine people listening to this just be like, well, join another church where there is structural support and find it there. But like, that's so, as if it were that simple, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because it, like religion, faith, community goes so much deeper than the structure.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, it's hard to not have a harmony between those two things.
Yeah.
It's very dissonant.
Uh-huh. Yeah. As you've been talking, sometimes I've been accused like trying to change the church, or people like ask me if that's something I want to do. And what I've always said and what I really believe is like, not only is that not my role, but it's also not possible.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I really believe that, God is in charge, and it's not my job to try and change anything. My job is just to, build the kingdom and trust that God will do his work. And, I've shared this before, but my favorite scripture is Doctrine and Covenants, section 121, verse 17, where the Lord says, therefore, dearly beloved brethren and sisters, let us cheerfully do all things that lie in our power, and then may we stand still with the utmost assurance to see the salvation of God and for his arm to be revealed.
I love that you have it memorized.
And I add in the and sisters, because I'm sure the Lord meant brother and sisters.
Mm.
But I memorize scriptures all the time. I love scriptures. But when I get discouraged, I try and remind myself, like, this isn't my thing to fix.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is something that the Lord is in charge of, but he will call us to do his work, and that his arm will be there. And sometimes, like, I forget that. Like, I just get so frustrated. I just want to, like, do something and, like, yell something and, like, start something.
Right.
But reminding myself that this is God's work.
Yeah.
And, like, there have been so many times where I have, like, after listening to a general conference talk or something that's, like, all about the importance of marriage, and I'll, like, kneel down and pray, like, God, am I wrong? Like, am I doing things wrong? Is this something I should try and change again or fix, or should I marry a woman? And as I've approached God, again and again and again, I feel like I get the assurance, like, you're on the right path.
Right.
And I just got this, like, super dismissive text from someone a few days ago where I was asking a question about church policy, and he responded and just, like, gave a really dry answer and said, you should probably pray about this more. And I just said thank you, but in my head I was thinking, like, I think there are a few people who pray about this as much as I have, because like, this is my life. Being a gay member of the church is my life, and I think about this and pray about it and fast about it and ask questions about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I frankly feel pretty dismissed by a lot of people.
Yeah.
And that's just hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard.
Well, and a lot of times the people who are dismissive are supporting their dismissal by, like, an element of the structure that they pick out.
Mm-hmm.
Right. They're like, well, because of this, and there's just so many ways that, I don't know, you feel downtrodden.
Uh-huh.
Right. And like you said, like the decision to marry someone for me did not come lightly. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it was excruciating and agony and prayer and study and waiting and, like, fasting, like, so much. Like, this was not just, like, some fickle, oh, like, I want to be gay, so I'm going to go be gay now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, the LGBTQ people I know, everyone I've ever met, it has been a hard road to get to where they are.
Yeah.
And they've had to, like, wrestle.
I thought in Missouri you said wrestle.
You got to wrestle. What was I saying?
You were saying that you didn't come to the decision to marry Ryan lightly.
Yeah. And so when someone's just like, oh, actually, that's bad, you shouldn't do that. It's like, okay, that's really simple to say when you've never had to even consider it,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah. There are a lot of like stage of faith models. And uh like there's Fowler stages of faith, and there's some that has like 6 stages, and then there are other stage models that have just like 3 stages, but they all start with like this very simple faith. Like we have this black and white faith, like right and wrong, things are very clear, that then goes into some complexity,
Mm-hmm.
and then like a more deeper nuanced faith that's complex, but like has like that some like the assurance of the simpler times.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like we live in a place where we have had to go through complexity that a lot of people haven't had to.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's so easy for them to dismiss what we've been going through because they just haven't had to deal with the complexity. And I see this a lot with the families of LGBTQ people in the church, because they are pulled into a complexity that isn't theirs. Like it's not like because they're not the people that are like fully affected, but they're affected because their loved one
It's
is.
close. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that many families have stepped into that space, but not all do. Some of them just like, I'm not going to deal with this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think more people need to step into that complexity.
Yeah.
More people need to actually see what's been going on.
Well, so often, I think we as humans maybe, but especially, I don't want to like point fingers, but I feel like people take their discomfort with LGBTQ people as a sign that we're gross,
Mm-hmm.
rather than an invitation to grow,
Yeah.
or an invitation to learn more or move in closer.
Mm-hmm.
And what a tragic loss.
Yeah.
And what a tragic loss on the other side, like for both parties, because on the one hand, you have someone who stays stuck and doesn't get the inspiration and enjoyment of moving closer into relationship with someone.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the other end, you have someone whose oppression is perpetuated
Yeah.
because somebody chooses to stay ignorant because they're uncomfortable.
Uh-huh.
A couple weeks ago, my siblings were going to hang out with someone coming through town who we grew up with, and we've known this person forever, and they've just been a great family friend. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, Ryan, I haven't seen this person in a long time. I'd love to introduce you.
Did you guys wrestle when you were younger?
No, maybe. I don't remember. I actually did wrestle for a little bit. My parents put me into wrestling, and I was terrible. Like, contact sports were not my thing. I was like, can I just do cartwheels? Anyway, so we were doing something else, but I was like, we can make it for a little bit. And so we show up, and this person I was really excited to see did not acknowledge us. Nothing. And I was like, hey, how's it going? And they were really uncomfortable. They're like, hi. And then they just like avoided us, did not even say hi to Ryan, like wouldn't even look at us the entire time. It was very uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And then...
And you like approached this person and like said hello and tried to start a conversation.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. Very awkward. And it was obvious what it was just from the minute. And Ryan was like, I'm done. Like, I don't need to deal with this. And I was sad because I was like, wait, I love this person and I want you to know them, but I guess not.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then later they had talked to some other family members of mine about how uncomfortable it was, and that they were just disgusted to be around a gay couple and didn't like it.
Mm-hmm.
And the others had my back. They were like, it's literally just Charlie, like, and Ryan's cool,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just like, how sad is that? Because now someone I love and care about, I feel awkward about now.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't get to meet my husband, who's an amazing person. And I actually think they'd be really good friends. They have a ton of similar interests, but like, just because, like I said, just because we're different, those differences, rather than being an invitation to find common ground and grow, are just like, ew, gross.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And like I said, that sentiment, like you were saying, that sentiment is being supported by a lot of different structures right now. And here's the deal. It's hard too, because I don't think you can paint good or bad, right? Even taking like a brush to church structure or political structure or different other churches structures, like you can't just swath, this is good, this is bad. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
There really is so much Tell me what I'm trying to say.
What you're saying is that person who rejected you and Ryan is not a bad person.
For sure.
That's what you're saying.
I actually think they're a really good person.
But this thing
in the systems they believe in or associate with or where they get their information or their news from, I don't always think are inherently evil, but I do think in certain ways they perpetuate bias or ignorance or fear that just sucks to be on the receiving end of.
Yeah. Can I tell a story that's come to mind?
Yeah.
It's how I start my book, actually. So if anyone's read it, they already know the story. But I start my book out with the story of Rhoda. It's from Acts chapter 12. And Rhoda's like only mentioned in a few verses. She's this young woman
She's not on Good Morning America anymore.
Rhoda? There was a woman.
Oh, wait, sorry. That's Hoda.
Okay. I'm not familiar with Good Morning. Well, I know of Good Morning America. I just don't know who's on it.
You don't know Hoda?
I don't know
Is it
Hoda.
Good Morning America?
I really don't know.
Hoda reposted one of my reels last month.
What?
It's very exciting.
Hoda sounds amazing. I've just heard of her for the first time right now, but I love her.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, right now I feel like I can't complain that people are mean to me on social media because Hoda was nice. Anyway,
that's true. You don't deserve to feel upset.
Carry on with Rhoda.
Anyway, Rhoda's this young woman, and at the time, Peter had just been put in prison, and the whole church knows he's in prison. And then at the beginning of the chapter, he's freed from prison by an angel. And so there's this miracle that happens. But everyone in the church thinks he's still in prison. And so Rhoda and some other people are worshiping in a house together, and Peter comes and knocks at the gate. And so Rhoda goes to open and she hears that it's Peter, and she's so excited, instead of letting him in, she runs and tells everyone that Peter's there. So they all respond by saying, "You're crazy. Like, Peter can't be there. We know he's in prison." And then it says in one of the verses that she constantly affirmed that it was so, or something along those lines. And when she wouldn't let up that Peter was out there, they then rationalized it away. Like, well, maybe it's his ghost. Like, maybe it's Peter, which is because
it's more.
Yeah, like it's more likely to believe his ghost is there. He's actually
in
there.
Town.
Yeah,
he's not in prison.
But then he keeps knocking. So then someone else goes and looks. Like, oh my gosh, it's Peter. And it says that they were astonished. Mm-hmm. And that story to me really reflects how we so easily dismiss someone's experience that makes us uncomfortable, and then when we keep hearing it, we explain it away. And the thing that really changes us is when we get to see it for ourselves. And that's why I called my book A Walk in My Shoes. I was like, hey, come see what I've seen. Be on my journey with me. Yeah. But this is the story I want to tell that is in line with that. So that was in Acts chapter 12. Mm-hmm. And a story happens that bookmarks that story. So in Acts chapter 10, that's when Cornelius is a Gentile and he wants to join the church, and an angel appears to him. And then Peter, the prophet, this is before he goes into prison, is praying, and he sees this vision of this sheet, and it has all these unclean animals, and God's like, go eat these unclean animals. He's like, I can't eat those unclean animals. And God says, what I have made clean, call thou not unclean. And then Peter wakes up from this vision. He's like, what does this mean? And then Cornelius's servant comes up. He's like, hey, come meet my dude Cornelius. And so then Peter goes and talks to Cornelius, who's a Gentile, and Cornelius's household. And he's like, low-key, I'm not even supposed to talk to you guys because you're Gentiles, but the Lord sent me here. And then he talks to them, and while he's preaching to them, he notices that they're feeling the Holy Ghost. He's like, oh, this is what it meant. You guys can join the church now. And then he baptizes them. And that's so cool. Yeah. And so these people that had been shunned were now fully welcomed in. And then 5 chapters later, in Acts chapter 15, all these Gentiles have started joining the church, and they don't know what to do with them because previously all the Jews had been circumcised. Like, well, do we have to circumcise these new converts? Which is a very weird question to have.
Yeah, but awkward moments in church history.
But they had a whole question. They had a whole conference about it. It's called the Jerusalem Conference in Acts chapter 15. So they're debating what to do with these new Gentile converts and whether or not they should be required to live the law of Moses. And so while they're arguing, Peter stands up and says, "Why tempt ye God to put a yoke on our brethren that neither we nor our fathers could bear?" He's like, why are we asking them to do something that we couldn't do? We couldn't live the law of Moses. Why are we asking them to do it? Yeah. And like that's the kind of bold thing that happens when someone has spent time with someone that's different from them. Yeah. And that's the kind of thing that happens when people have gone to the door and seen who was knocking. Like they say, why are we asking them to do something that we can't do? I can't tell you how many times people have said to me, Ben, what you're doing is so hard. I couldn't do it. Or like straight people. My bishop told me that on Sunday. He's like, Ben, I don't know how you're doing it. And like, why do we live in a place where everyone's like, oh, what you're doing seems impossible. Also, time to ignore this because it makes me uncomfortable.
Right.
I'm just like it. The answer is just so simple. Like, let's listen to each other.
Well, how do you get someone to knock on the or to go look at who's knocking?
I think we just make invitations. As simple as that sounds.
But I just feel like frustrated sometimes because the invitation can't come from me. Like this person won't even look at me.
Mm-hmm.
What am I going to invite them, send them a copy of my book so they can burn it? Like the invitation can't come from me.
Well, I think the invitation, like this is why we have allies.
Yeah.
You know, this is why we have family members. You know, this is why Elder Razban gave that talk about stone catchers. You know, when people are hurling stuff at us, you know, our loved ones should be out there catching the stones, and we should be catching the stones of stones that are hurled at people that are different from us too.
Yeah.
You know, that's what a Christ-centered community is. Like we protect one another from harmful things. And so I think we invite our allies to be our voices and to invite people to make choices. You know, I'm sure I've shared the story before, but when I came out to my parents when I was 23, I didn't really have a full conversation with them about being gay for another 7 years. And I mean, my dad would like bring it up, but we wouldn't really talk about it. And I didn't really want to. Like whenever it was brought up, like I just like shut it down. But my dad spent hours reading blog posts and watching YouTube videos about gay Latter-day Saints and like really seeing what other people were experiencing, so that when I was ready to talk, he was prepared. And that was because he loved me. Like that's what he felt prompted to do to love me. And I think more people need to be prompted to do that. And it's just not happening right now. When I was a guest lecturer at Aspen Grove, like this BYU summer camp, a few years ago. Mm-hmm. And this really rude guy interrupted my class, and said some rude things about gay people. And then the room like kind of lost it because people were, didn't like what he was saying. So I found him and talked to him and offered him a copy of my book. And I even signed it with his name. And he said, no, I'm not going to read that.
Yeah.
And you know, and that sucks. But I did what I could.
Yeah.
And now it's in God's hands. I mean, it was always in God's hands. But I think that we make the invitation, you know, the old adage, we can lead a horse to water, but we can't make him drink. Yeah. But we can give people an opportunity to drink up our stories, so to speak.
Yeah. Thank you. That was really great. You know, I suspect it's so interesting after what you just said. After I came home from the temple, I was still stressed out. And that night, Ryan and I just had a conversation and we're like, we're both stressed out. Like, what are we going to do about this? And we realized that what we had been doing was staying informed, like in order to protect ourselves or like be ready. We were just being really informed. And for the past couple months, we've been just like drinking in information and like what could happen, what are people saying about this, about us, what is this bill, like what would it look like? There's multiple steps that would need to happen, you know, and it's so funny because we honestly thought we were protecting ourselves, right? We were being ready, but what that was doing was actually decreasing our ability to protect ourselves because we weren't right with ourselves. We didn't feel safe. We didn't feel secure. We were spending all this time and effort in these what ifs instead of our relationship, strengthening us, strengthening our families. And I just wonder if that's happening. I think it's definitely happening to LGBTQ people, but the families, the allies, I wonder if right now so many of us, just because there's so much noise, are trying to hear everything. That way we can be better prepared, better allies, ready, you know? I don't think, I can't tell anyone else what to do, but for us, we stopped. We identified the things that were making us feel more frazzled and took them out of our lives. It's only been a week, but we're so much happier. And I'm just thinking, if any of these like threats to marriage equality, right? If that does happen, which it's not happening right now, and there are multiple steps if it were to happen.
Yeah.
But right now, But if it ever does, like, I'm going to need to be strong. I need to have a deep well within me because I'm going to have to do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I'm not going to get that well if I'm anxious or trying to prepare through what ifs and being scared. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Because the truth is that even if our environment is 100% safe, if we're not good with ourselves, we still might not feel safe.
Yeah.
You know, and so the best thing we can do is strengthen our relationships and strengthen ourselves, because when times get hard, and they always get hard, in whatever way they get hard, then we'll be okay.
Well, I'm just thinking of the allies, like anyone who's listening and wants to do this, like we need allies to not only catch the stones, but like bring people to the door, right? And say, hey, look who's knocking. I think we've established many reasons why a lot of people in the LGBTQ community can't do that right now, or unable, or just won't be listened to. But that's what we need. And in order to do that, like, you have to, like, please talk to people, like your bishops, the men in your life, the people who are most uncomfortable. Have those initial conversations. Like, I'm begging you to do that. And I know I'm asking so much, because on top of that, you're going to have to regulate your emotions.
Mm-hmm.
You like can't get mad. It can't be a fight. Like, the other person has to feel safe and seen in order for them to think about drinking. They're not going to drink water they think's dangerous, right?
Yeah.
And it's just such a heavy burden. And just like, I'm begging you to carry that for us right now, because like, we are carrying a lot, and we're strong people carrying too much. And I just, please do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's so important that we be allies for each other. You know, as I'm planning this next Gather conference, which will be the last weekend in June in Provo, Utah. I'm not a trans person, but right. I was invited to ask trans people what they would need from the Gather conference. So I reached out to a number of trans people who are friends of mine and asked them, like, what would it look like to have this conference be something that would be helpful to you? And I feel pretty versed on trans issues and topics, and they said some things that I hadn't expected. And based on what they shared, we are going to do things because of what they asked for. And I think that is always a good way to be an ally. Like to ask someone who's struggling, like, what do you need from me? What can I do for you? And then to see what it is, and if it works for you, to then do that thing.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, what we're asking for is for people to talk to those who are uncomfortable with us and are uncomfortable with the reality of LGBTQ people, and share our stories so they then have the opportunity to be more comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. And like the people who have influence too, right?
Mm-hmm. And, you know, like I said, talking to trans people about, like, what do you need from me? Like, I wish more people would do that. There's a presentation I've been giving for like 7 years in a psychology class at BYU about the stages of homosexual identity development. And I start out the presentation sharing two quotes from President Ballard. The first one is that famous one, like, we need to listen to, we need to listen to and understand what our LGBT brothers and sisters are feeling and experiencing. Certainly we must do better than we've done in the past.
Like feeling and experiencing.
Yeah, we
both.
Yeah, we understand what they're feeling and experiencing, and we have to do better than that. Like, he said that very clearly at BYU in 2017. But in another devotional, he talks about the church's stance on same-sex attraction, and he says the church reaches out to all of God's children, including those who experience same-sex attraction. And when I share that quote with the class, I always say, what would that look like? What would that look like in your family, in your ward, and your stake, to reach out with love and understanding to the LGBTQ people in your lives? Like, what would that actually look like? And I tell them, like, that's a rhetorical question for you to ponder, but I want to think about, like, what does that look like? And, you know, I do wish that more people would ask, like, you know, what can we do for you, Charlie? You know, if you're feeling this noise, if you're feeling uncomfortable, if you're feeling watched at church, you know, what can we do for you? I wish more people would ask that of me too. I wish people would ask my friends that. Because I think there's a lot we could do. And as we have those conversations, that's when the revelation is going to happen. Because if we don't talk, then we won't know.
Well, I mean, the prophet says that good revelation comes from good information, and people's information about what it means to be LGBTQ is horrible. They have horrible, outdated, wrong information. And then the revelation, or like the action they take, is to shun or put down or kick out, or just like it's like we're not going after the one, we're literally beating them up and throwing them on the other side of the fence. Like, no wonder so many are lost.
Yeah.
It's so, like, it's a big deal. It's a big deal that's happening to an entire demographic of God's children.
Yeah.
And I just want people to care.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you say, like, what can you do for me? I don't care. Like, I don't need people to ask me what to do for me, but like, I just get so stressed about the people who, like, I have so much privilege.
Well, can I pause you for a second?
Yeah.
I don't want the people listening to this to ask you what you need.
Right.
I want them to have a conversation with their bishops about what the listener needs in their ward.
Exactly.
That's
yeah.
what I want.
Yeah, exactly. And I just want to make that clear, because like, I am just like a different beast, right? But I have privilege. I have a good ward right now. I have family who supports me. And for all the family I have that doesn't, there are like good people who love me and support me. Some people don't have that. I have enough money to pay for mental health resources. I have an education in a background in mental health. Like, I have so many resources, and it just like stresses me out so much for the people who don't have that.
Yeah.
For the people, like, if every person in their family acts the way that person I was talking about with them, if they want to introduce their partner or their boyfriend or just themselves somewhere, and everyone shuns them, like, that is crippling.
Yeah.
And so, like, we talked about the difference of, like, maybe, allyship and belonging on the ground level doesn't make up for a lack of structural support, but to lack both of those things, structural support and friends, and someone to talk to, someone to love you, like, we can't live in this world anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we need more people. We need more conversations. We need more understanding. We need more people talking and sharing. I was really impressed with something that Elder Stephen Snow did recently. He's an emeritus general authority. He was the church historian for a number of years. Like, he started the Joseph Smith Papers Project. Like, he started the Saint series. Like, he's did a lot of great things. And he was recently interviewed for a story on Lift and Love on Instagram. And he talked about his queer grandkids and how much he loves them, and struggles he's had, with feelings, as he's learned to love and accept them. I just said struggles he's had with feelings. I guess I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know quite where I'm going. But I was really impressed that someone of his high status in the church would say something about, like, I love my queer grandkids. I love them. And he like went to their weddings and one of their weddings, was happy about that. And I want more people to share those stories. I want more people to be able to say, like, this is how I love my queer family member. This is how I love my trans sibling. This is how I love my gay neighbor. Like, I think we need to be so much more vocal about that.
And you see what that does is it reverses that issue versus person thing. It puts the person first and say, this is how I love this person. And then the issue is easier to deal with. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because, like, honestly, if you want to have a conversation about policy or issues that are real and might arise, that's great. But we have to remember that this is an individual. Like our love for a person has to inform the structure, not the structure informing how or if we love a person. And I'm not just talking, like, I hope when people listen to this, I'm not just talking about the church, right? Or the church structure or policy. I'm just talking about in general, like the systems that we have, the like local, state, national, religious, school, like the policies can't inform how we love someone. The way we love someone has to inform the policies.
Yeah. I've mentioned before that I read general conference talks on my bus ride to work. I recently read Elder Holland's talk from his last general conference from October 2024 about Jesus, and it's so good. It was so good. I read it like 2 days in a row because it was so good. But one of the things he said was, he's like, we have quoted the 2 great commandments in this conference, and we will forever quote them because they always matter. And, really asking ourselves, like, what does it look like today to love God? And what does it look like today to love my neighbor? Like, what does that actually look like? Is so important. Like, those are questions we have to be asking ourselves. Like, that's why it's brought up so much. And, when Jesus was asked, how does someone get to heaven? His answer was the story of the Good Samaritan. Like, that person that you think doesn't belong, they're the one who's going to make it because of the way that they loved.
Yeah.
And I want that to be, I mean, that's so clearly taught. I just not sure we fully put that into practice.
What if it, like, so many people ask, like, these commandments feel contradictory, and somehow loving God feels like you can't love your neighbor. If someone feels that way, what advice would you give them?
Well, there's something that President Oak said in a devotional, I don't remember when it was, like a year and a half ago or something. And
get better at both.
yeah. He said he didn't apologize, but he said that he kind of seen them as like how do you balance the two? And then he said something. I wish I could just quote this exactly. But he said that as you do one, you do the other one more fully as well. Like the
way to increase one side or the other is to get better at both.
Yeah, like if you want to love your neighbor better, like love God better. If you want to love God better, love your neighbor better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I mean, that's like so clear. Like when you've done it to the least of these, you've done it to
that's
God.
The teachings of Jesus Christ.
It's like so clear. Like that's what the New Testament's all about.
Yeah, and it's and I think that's why some of like the heartbreak or the concern when I see like this online sentiment from people who are like, I love God, so I'm going to be horrible to you. I'm just like, why? Like, how did we get here?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I guess the answer is, once again, Jesus and proximity.
Yes. As we wrap up, there's a scripture that's also come to mind, and it's Doctrine and Covenants 58, verse 3. And this is the Lord speaking to Joseph Smith. And what has happened at this time in church history is like things have fallen apart in Missouri, and Joseph Smith is in Kirtland, but they don't know about what's happening in Missouri yet because the letters take a while. And so everything is falling apart in Missouri.
This is why period novels are so interesting to people because everything. Like, did you see that? Like Home Alone in 2024 or 2025?
He's like, text someone.
Hey mom, you forgot me. Like, movie over. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Or all the plot points where someone gets like stuck on a roof. They're like, oh no, we're stuck here on the roof.
Right. Just like, hey.
Yeah. So they don't know what's happening. Joseph doesn't know what's happening, but the Lord knows what's happening. And he says to Joseph Smith in Doctrine and Covenants 58:3, he says, ye cannot behold with your natural eyes for the present time the design of your God concerning those things which will come hereafter, and the glory which will follow after much tribulation. And in a lot of ways, like things are bad, like things are tough, but we can't even imagine the glory and the wonderful things that are going to come when we make it through these trying times.
Yeah.
And it is so imperative that we do it together. Like that's why we are called into community, because we can't do this alone.
I believe that. I think that's pretty called into community. Did you make that up?
Probably not. Can I just one more thought? I know we were wrapping up.
No, go for it.
There's this influencer I follow. It's called like No Empty Chairs or Empty. I think it's No Empty Chairs. It's just the Instagram handle. But it's this gay Catholic who's like talks about like what it's like to be a gay Catholic. Everything he says, if you just took out Catholic and exchanged it for Latter-day Saint, like it's the same.
Right.
It is like I am constantly baffled at how it's exactly the same. And this is not something that's just like affecting us, but there are a lot of people who are struggling right now. And I am so grateful for the people in so many spheres who are doing those things. I wish I could make fun videos like he does. I just don't like talking into a camera. But yeah, and I just like this work, like God's work of teaching us to love one another, like isn't just happening in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It's happening all over,
everywhere,
all over. And I'm so excited to be a part of it.
Me too. Yeah, that's cool.